utilities and back to service. So the area that we're talking about, and before I show you the picture, is out here at West Main, Main Street and Lancaster Pike. So out by the Kroger's, the intersection there and the next intersection. Just to give you some background, the city is eligible for the ODOT Small Cities Grant. The city has received this grant once before, but the small cities, it's 25,000, population of 5,000 to 25,000. There's only a handful of those in your ODOT district. So competitively, you're only competing against 3 or 4 other cities. And so the city's only taken advantage of that once. So Terry and I looked at it and said, there's some money there that the city could use for traffic, transportation, safety type of improvements that is out there to capitalize on. We looked at intersections and Terry and I thinking about, okay, where can the city become more efficient in its traffic, and where can you make something safer? Because safety is a big scoring component. We identified that area out there by Kroger's as one of the busiest intersections in town, and also where there have been some crashes. So just some background, we went to the police department and gathered some data. In the recent past, as far as how the scoring criteria looks at it, over the last year or two, there's been 26 crashes at that location, which projects that normally score well have, if you have 9 or 10, you're going to score pretty high. So it will be a significant, it's significant insofar as safety improvements. We looked at 3 alternatives. We looked at, how can we improve that intersection as far as efficiency, getting traffic through, and making it more safe. The first thing is you can do some traffic signal upgrades, changing the way that traffic signals are laid out so people can see them better. That was one opportunity. Another opportunity was a roundabout at Lancaster Pike in 2256 there. Having one roundabout. Challenge with that is you have a roundabout and then a traffic signal. You get through the roundabout, you could get stuck at the traffic signal. So then the final alternative was 2 roundabouts. So that's what I'm showing you here, the layout of what those intersection improvements would look like for free flow of traffic that would actually, based on, so I'll be the first to say, I'm not a traffic engineer, I'm more of a utility engineer. I handed this off to the traffic guys and gals, 2 gals and 2 guys, and they modeled this and ran through the scenarios. And this actually, so this would get you're at a level of service C right now. So traffic level of service, how bad traffic is, ODOT uses just like a report card, A, B, C, D. They actually have E and F. This is operating at a level C, which isn't terrible, but that's a level C right now. During pandemic, there's not as much traffic as there has been in the past, and it does not take into account your special events. If there's an event going on at the fairgrounds, if the pumpkin show is going on, or county fair, or even like I said, just one of those dairy shows at the fairgrounds. So under normal, I'm going to say lower traffic scenarios, you're at a C right now. This would bring you up to an A because no one has to stop at a stoplight. And the other thing is it avoids the crashes because you don't have people coming at each other. You don't have people running through lights. Everyone's moving the same direction. The studies show that if there is a crash, if there is an accident, it's going to be a side swipe, which are far less dangerous for injury than a T or a head-on. All that being said, this particular project was rated as, I'm going to say, the most efficient and effective at reducing crashes, so it has the highest safety score. The total cost was $2.6 million for this project. The Small Cities Grant, that is something that they program 4 years out. So the plan is to submit this project improvement to small cities. And all it does is it nominates you, it throws your name in the hat, and if you're selected, then you decide if you want to move forward. They give different ranges of money depending on how much competition you got and how much money they are delegating the projects between. But the project itself, if successful and council decides to move forward, would not be until 2025. And in that time, we had a conference call with ODOT. They said this is a very favorable project because it had 2 state routes involved. Crashes being at 26, they see it as a favorable project, and what you would look to do is add other funding sources to it. So you have small cities, you know, let's say that there's $500,000 there. There's a paving program where ODOT is going to pay this in 2024. They would move that money back in 2025 and pay for all the top surface of this project. There's OPWC. You could use two different years of OPWC at $400,000 each, or $350,000 each. Like Terry has for Cedar Heights Road, he combined two program years into one project to get more done. So there's other funding sources out there. We want to start with small cities, and I just want to make you all aware of that. And moving forward, there's no obligation or action that we need from you all. Just making you aware of that it's going to be turned in as an
I
application.
thought ODOT had planned to abandon that intersection. They've already talked to a property owner behind the fairgrounds about coming behind the fairground, or behind odd lots, in between odd lots and the fairgrounds, coming out on 56 at Kingston Pike. Is that no longer what they want to do, or?
So I haven't had any discussion with ODOT about that. Terry and I have looked at the strategic plan that shows an alternate alignment down through there for truck traffic. In my mind, because it's not part of an ODOT official plan, it's not the programmatic, I would say that would be no sooner than 10 years out. But I'm not familiar with ODOT having approached that. I know the city and the
ODOT
county.
has approached the property owner
Okay.
who owns 100-some acres behind the fairgrounds about that project. And that's been a year ago.
Yeah. With it all being in the city limits, I haven't had any discussions with ODOT having pursued that yet. What I will say is, even if that were the case, for city local traffic, I think this would still be a benefit, especially if there were significant grant funds available to it. So.
Right now, they're for the UTS, semi trucks can't make that turn, they just can't do it. So and you're saying the roundabout would help to make that.
Yes, they would. Yeah, what's interesting, so you can see in the center of the roundabout, the gray circle. So there's gray and then there's green. So green, imagine that as green space. The gray is not a traveled lane by cars, but it's what's called a mountable curb. So if a truck is going through there, the back tires will travel over that gray part and give them access to go through. It's similar to what we've done in Athens and some other places. So yes, it would help the trucks.
So you guys have already engineered that capability to do that?
We've done the planning for it. So, yep, so the layout, the geometrics are accurate, that we've modeled it to show that how traffic flows through, the trucks can come through, and we did that modeling specifically on traffic counts that we did in the field. So we went out, we literally did counts on how many people are turning right, turning left, straight through. For instance, there, is that Pontius Lane, the next one there? Yeah, so there's no left turn lane there. On average, you have 8 people a day turn left out of there on the no left turn lane. That's the stuff we gather during that. So yes, the modeling shows that trucks and traffic flow efficiently through there without.
And you already answered my first question about what we're currently doing on 22. So this being in the future, that doesn't have any impact. It's just that other roundabout with the bridge right there. So that seemed like that would have been a little difficult from that standpoint.
Yeah, so initially, roundabouts are all about geometrics. So if the circle in the middle is too small and people have too wide of a breadth, they can go faster past the circle in the middle of the roundabout if you don't get the geometrics right. So you have to widen that center to make people slow down to go out and then deflect around. That's what makes them safer, slowing people down. Initially, when we looked at it, the bridge was a challenge. We ended up moving it further to the west.
Yeah.
And then we had to then adjust what that circle size was, and we made it work to where it was just the 2 lanes across the bridge and integrate with the bridge. The part of the cost to that project at 2.6 million, you know, close to $500,000 of it, I believe, is just calculated for going through the ODOT process to gain right of way. And we're not taking anyone's property, but every time you impact a private property by just needing an easement or additional space, it takes time and money. And so nearly $500,000 of that was just for impact to the Krogers and the Rite Aid folks and the other one there in the corner. So all that's been taken into account.
Right now, I think the biggest capital project or dream we have is a grade separation, and that's much more costly than just roundabouts. Can you assure us that we're not gonna be competing with the same funding sources to get that done if we go with this project?
Yeah, so specifically for small cities, which is the one that we are pursuing for this project, small cities has two categories to pursue. One is safety, one is pavement condition. From the perspective of safety, you don't have a demonstrated safety issue at Court Street currently, which makes that a challenge for funding that project.
Court Street.
The grade separation.
Okay.
Yeah, the grade separation. So even though there's a potential for making safety better by being able to get fire trucks down the road and other things, the way the scoring criteria is laid out, it's not a good, this funding source is not a good fit for that. The other aspect is pavement condition, and again, it's not a good candidate because it doesn't have a lot of pavement involved. It's just the single grade separation. You don't have miles of pavement in a certain condition. So what I can say is submitting this project for small cities in no way competes with your grade separation project.
But you said it would probably require getting some other funding, other sources, that's what I'm asking about. And other sources gonna be the ones we're gonna be turning to for the grade separation as well.
And so, the other ones we talked about, the Pavement Legacy Program that I just mentioned for ODOT, it's specifically budgeted for this section of pavement, so it can only be used out there on 22 and 56. So that one is non-compete. OPWC is one that could be competitive. Like I said, you can look at using 1 or 2 years of OPWC funding toward this project, but OPWC is available every year. So my sense is a grade separation project, which we've actually already done some cost planning on, it's further out than what this project would be, timing wise. It's gonna take a little while. And you can easily coordinate the OPWC funding years between the two, in my opinion.
For safety, you indicated that you counted cars, trucks, etc. That does include like farm equipment too, right? The measurements
If there, yes,
would take into consideration large combines.
correct,
Okay.
yes.
Second question has to do with safety of pedestrians. So that intersection is highly trafficked by kids walking to school, etc. before and after. And so I wanted to make sure that those intersections would be still safe with roundabouts.
Yes, so, the project we worked on in Athens with OU, we were seeing at the one roundabout there, geez, I'm gonna say there were 5,000 pedestrians a day. So, they're certainly safe, we're certainly comfortable with them. The interesting thing about roundabouts that's different than normal intersections, you know, and like we always tell our school children, always walk in front of the bus, right? At a roundabout, the difference is your pedestrians are typically gonna pass behind the vehicles as they slow down and come to the roundabout to yield. We're gonna pass both in front of and behind. You can see the diamond shapes in each one of the legs of the roundabout. Those are essentially pedestrian havens. So you cross one lane, and if there's another car coming, you have a place to stop before crossing the other lane. You don't have to cross all the lanes at once. We've found them to be incredibly safe for pedestrians.
Last question. Do you foresee the speed limit being reduced in this area from what it currently is in order to control traffic?
So the answer is we don't have any proposed speed limit reductions. By virtue of the geometry of the roundabout, you can't go through it any faster than the geometry allows. So it is inherently going to slow traffic down as they come through the intersections. know what the posted speed limits are out there now. I'm sure it's in our report, but I can tell you that it will slow traffic down as they enter and exit the roundabout, probably what they are now, from a stop start.
It appears we're encroaching on Kroger's property quite a bit there. Do we have to pay for that easement?
Yeah, so every piece of real estate that is touched, that's private real estate through the ODOT process compared to utilities, you have to follow the Federal Uniform Relocation Act. And so, yes, that is part of those costs that we calculated on, and being a fairly significant portion of the project costs. I think
We're taking a sizable chunk of their property that they can't use for parking, it appears, so.
Yeah, the way that sits, there's still parking right beside there, all that yellow is still
Yeah,
the
but
parking they
that's
have.
gonna be city property though. Is that correct?
so. Some of it would likely be city property, but we can still, the city can still allow people to park there. And if it's Kroger patrons, that's probably who's gonna use it. The way it's laid out there now, I don't think that you're losing more than a handful of parking spaces, because, we put those back. The 2 lanes coming in and out, no one's parking up there anyway. There's no parking laid out from the gas station into that exit. So as far as overall impacts to them, and parking loss, it wasn't significant for what it's worth.
What about their semi-traffic coming in and out of their loading docks?
So
Cause
they're
they're
loading
on the east side.
down the southeast side, is my cursor, no, my cursor's not showing up. Here, this laser pointer, there we go. Right there?
Yeah.
Yep, so a truck will easily be able to come in and out of this roundabout, for any direction. And that's, again, that gray circle, while cars don't travel on it, as a truck comes around in the single lane and makes that turn, its back tires are gonna trail on that gray portion to allow it to use the roundabout.
So Terry, this will leapfrog over the roundabout project that we have scheduled or had pushed for at Walnut Creek Pike in North Court.
We did, we studied that, discussed that, that would not score as much. First of all, it's not on a state or US route. For small cities, that gives you bonus points. We could find very little serious accident data to support the safety part of it. There are other remedies, not a roundabout, that might work in that area. Certainly, long range, that might be a good spot for a roundabout, particularly when we get more residential growth in the north end of town. But comparing and contrasting, but we looked at other intersections too. We looked at Pies and 188. We looked at North Ridge and Nicholas. We looked at Walnut Creek Pike and North Court Street. But because of the traffic, the accidents, the congestion, this really rose to the top of what we thought we should study and apply for. If it's your pleasure.
So all of those projects and intersections that Terry mentioned and Walnut Creek Pike, all of those we've looked at. This particular area came to the top, like Terry said, is scoring the best towards this specific grant funding. So because of that and opportunity, it's one of those things that's, in my opinion, worth putting in, because if you, there's no obligation right now. We don't need any action from you guys. We'll turn it in, and if they shortlist us, then we'll go and present. And if they wanna give us the money, we'll come and ask you guys if it's okay.
Chris,
Yes?
what have we got in expenses for the studies?
For this particular study right here,
Mm-hmm.
this one, I believe, was about $30,000, and that also developed the preliminary engineering. So that's the traffic counts, the studies, the alternatives analysis. It pays for compiling the application and doing the preliminary engineering, which is geometric, so.
Did you all look at Court Street and 188?
Court Street and 188.
Is it possible having around North Ridge Road, 188?
We looked at that
Court Street.
preliminarily, it was not part of the study that we did with Terry. When we looked at it, again, we started with where there were the most crashes, that was here, and then next, how does pavement, condition stack up? Because the focus was, for small cities application grant, where do we get the most points? So that's how we focused our efforts initially. There's also obviously other intersections that can use work as well.
So that was just one intersection, or this particular study was $30,000. What about out to Walnut Creek Pike and Court Street?
Yeah, so we did not study that one. We took that out of the initial scope, once we looked at, what the crashes were there, the pavement condition, the fact that it was gonna score, I'm gonna say, in the teens out of 100. It was that low, so we stopped there with that one.
So that's the one we had studied.
So, we didn't do a study on that one, we stopped short of doing a study on.
The only one we paid to study was 22 and 56.
2256, and it actually included, through the 3 intersections, yeah, as far as the study goes. And then we did, and on top of the study, we actually did the preliminary engineering as well.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Tom?
I have a couple, not so much for Chris, but just some updates from Terry. One is there are stop signs where the stoplights are, they're at High Street and Pickaway. Is that to be a permanent disconnect on the lights itself, or what's next?
It is not. There was a traffic crash there that destroyed the signal box, and we're in the process of, well, we're looking at an insurance claim, of course, to pay for it, but that is only temporary because of the traffic crash.
Okay. And the other would be, where are we with Cedar Heights?
Cedar Heights, basically the